In this powerful episode of Wealthy Business, we break down Baidu's massive decision to open source its flagship Ernie language model. What does this mean for OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and the rest of the global AI market? Could this spark a worldwide price war for artificial intelligence? Join me as we unpack every single layer, from the potential security concerns to the pricing impact to the geopolitics of China's growing influence over global AI. Don't miss this. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more in-depth stories on finance, news, and personal growth with Wealthy Business. Hey everyone, welcome back to Wealthy Business, your trusted place to explore finance, technology, and personal growth on a deeper level. Today, let's dive into one of the biggest shakeups in artificial intelligence we've seen all year. Baidu, yes, China's Baidu, often called China's Google, just announced something that could send shockwaves through the entire global tech industry. They are going to open source their powerful Ernie language model. Now let's really let that sink in. This is not a minor tweak. This is not just a side update. This is a fundamental shift in Baidu's entire strategy, and arguably a turning point for AI worldwide. Why is this so big? Okay, let's put it into context for you. Baidu has been a proprietary fortress for years. They have invested billions in developing Ernie. They've jealously guarded the code. They built premium commercial services around it. They were loudly against open source, saying it diluted their competitive advantage. But then along came DeepSeek, another Chinese disruptor that showed the world open source models can compete head-to-head with closed commercial models. Developers and startups love open source because it lets them move fast, break things, and rebuild the next generation of apps on their own terms. Open source is a culture. It's about community, speed, collaboration, and creativity. Baidu saw the writing on the wall, so they flipped. And now they're bringing Ernie to the world, open source. That's why people are calling this a Molotov cocktail for the AI industry. This is a price war, make no mistake. Let's break down the real stakes here. When you open source a world-class model like Ernie, you are basically slashing the costs of advanced AI to the floor. Developers don't have to pay massive licensing fees. Startups can build their own specialized products without paying a giant corporation for API access. Innovation spreads exponentially. This move is basically Baidu telling the entire world, stop paying champagne prices for AI. Here's a Kirkland-level model, affordable, powerful, and yours to tinker with. One AI investor compared it to Costco launching its own house brand to crush the expensive labels. So if you're a competitor like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google, you now have to explain to your customers why they should pay you thousands or millions of dollars for premium access when Baidu's model is free to build on. That's a business earthquake. Why it matters for business. This is huge for the entire tech and finance world. Because if AI pricing collapses, a lot of business models collapse too. Venture-backed startups that charge money for AI as a service, big cloud providers with expensive model hosting fees, premium model subscriptions. They could all see their valuations get shaken to the core. At the same time, innovation could explode. Imagine millions of developers around the world grabbing this open source Ernie and customizing it for health, finance, education, government, even entertainment. That's what scares the competition. That's what excites entrepreneurs. And it's why Baidu's move will have consequences far beyond China. What about security? Let's be real. There's a dark side to this story too. When you make something open source, you lower costs and accelerate innovation, sure. But you also open the door to less oversight, more security vulnerabilities, potential abuse. Western tech strategists are especially nervous because this is Chinese open source. Remember, the Chinese government has extremely wide legal powers to request data, influence companies, and sometimes even get hidden back doors into code bases. So there's a legitimate fear here. If thousands of apps around the world start building on Baidu's Ernie, and those apps are running on consumer phones, then the Chinese state could in theory have a much wider surveillance footprint. Alex Strasmore, the Epic Loot founder, called it virtually giving China access to every app on every phone. That's terrifying for privacy advocates. What's the strategy here? Let's be clear. Baidu is not doing this because they suddenly became a charity. They see a long game. They want to seed the entire global market with their technology. They want to establish Ernie as the default open platform. They want developers building around a Chinese origin ecosystem. It's the same playbook that made Android so powerful versus Apple's closed iOS, but this time it's playing out in artificial intelligence. If Ernie becomes the default in emerging markets, that's a gigantic soft power win for China. What should you watch for? If you're an investor or entrepreneur, this is what I'd keep my eye on. Who is going to adopt Baidu's open source model? How quickly will Western businesses trust it or reject it? Will OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google be forced to open up more of their own code just to stay relevant? Will prices for AI-powered services fall across the board? Will China quietly gain influence over a wave of next-generation apps? The answers to these questions will determine the winners and losers in the next wave of the AI revolution, whether global innovation speeds up or fractures into competing AI blocks, whether consumers get cheaper, better services, or risk giving up their data privacy. The geopolitical angle. Don't forget the geopolitics. Baidu going open source is not just about code, it's about influence. China knows that whoever controls the default technology stack of tomorrow controls the digital economy of tomorrow. That's why this is basically a chess move in a much bigger game. US wants its models, like GPT and Gemini, to dominate. China wants Ernie and its ecosystem to dominate. And what better way to get people using your technology than by giving it away for free? That's the strategy. Final thoughts. So here's my message to you, wealthy business community. Baidu's open source bombshell is a huge deal, no matter where you live. If you're a founder, developer, investor, or simply a technology user, this will reshape the entire conversation around who controls the future of artificial intelligence, how much it costs to access that power. Whether we can trust the technology we depend on, we are in a global AI arms race. But instead of missiles, the weapons are code, models, and data. And with Baidu's move, the rules of the game just changed.